Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the EVE Universe show's continued coverage of the CSM 17 election with Sarin Blackfist. How's it going?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. You are one of the people that, like, you and I have touched each other. Wait, that sounds bad. You and I have met in various different ways over the past, but unfortunately, nothing that like I can stand out with to pull out of you. But
so we wrote for Crossing Zebras at the same time,
right.
And that was back when I was like a bright-eyed, shiny newbie and didn't know anything about Eve. And that was the whole point of the articles I wrote for them.
Right.
That was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. So, what would you consider yourself now then?
I am in that state where I'm not quite a bitter vet, but I could see myself being one at any point in time, right? I know a lot about Eve now. I know a lot about the good parts and the bad parts about the game and the community. But it's still a game I'm really passionate about. Really enjoy talking to people about. So I'd call myself a veteran now, I guess.
So you're in the Imperium.
Yes,
Are you
I am a director in Goonswarm. I am a director in Goonswarm. I am a director of Karma Fleet. So I am Imperial leadership.
So I guess my first question is, why are you talking to me then?
Because I'm not actually running on the. I'm not one of our candidates this year.
Oh.
I'll be on the ballot. I'll be near the bottom where it's not going to get me much of anything.
Director is not enough to get you a place, huh?
Well, so the Imperium has strategies for everything, right? I'm not part of the CSM strategy this year.
Fair enough.
I'm running because I want to be on the CSM, because I want to help. I want to help more people tell their story about what they do about Eve, and I want to try to put my finger on the scales where I can to help stories get told. Right? I love talking about Eve. It's a fascinating game, and I've I feel like I have a singular, unique path through the Eve universe in that I'm not a journalist, but I have this giant platform with Kotaku that I am able to share Eve with the rest of the world, right? And that came.
If you're writing for Kotaku, what's the difference between you and a journalist?
Well, I'm a software developer by day, and
so
I
freelance.
only write about Eve. Yes, I am a freelancer. Yeah,
tracking.
I only write about Eve.
I see.
And I write about Eve because when I was a newbie, I wrote for Crossing Zebras to make some extra ISK, and saw a Reddit post one day that said, "Hey, do you want to write about Eve for Kotaku?" And I was like, "Yeah, right. Sounds like me. Let's do it."
Well, drat, I should have seen that post. So, I guess I would ask, overall, are you positive about the state of the game or not?
I mean, is anyone wholly positive about the state of the game right now? There are obvious problems. I'm not as doom and gloom as some. Like we have a player count issue right now, and I think everyone knows that. CCP knows that. And I mean, to me, that is the biggest issue that overrides any other issue. People needs to play the game for the game to succeed.
Well, right. I agree with that. And do you think that CCP is going in the right direction to fix that based on what was announced at FanFest?
Based on what was announced at FanFest?
Well, based on what we know. Just like...
well, based on what we know or based on what I know, I'm pretty happy with FanFest. I'll say that.
Okay.
There's some things I can't talk about because I do have a relationship with CCP that's not quite an NDA, but kind of close. It's unofficial, right? But no, I think
CCP devs trust you enough to reach
yes,
out to you and ask you questions.
yeah,
which
I've got a
is
pretty good relationship with several of them.
which is a kind of endorsement. I think is, I mean, it's worth noting that CCP has taken the initiative. You're one of the people that they contact to get information for, and so yeah, it's pretty easy to argue that getting. Do you believe that the CCP wants you to get elected so that way you can be behind the NDA? Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Um,
Do you feel like not being under NDA has been a hindrance?
I think there's several there that would love to be able to talk to me with an NDA. Yes, I'm not going to say they want me to be on the CSM because that's kind of an overreach, right? But there are several there that would like to see me in that room for various reasons.
Fair enough.
And there's always at least this is according to CSMs I've spoken with, former and current. There's always a warm up period for new CSMs where the devs need to learn if the person they're talking to knows what they're talking about, if they care about their opinion, if they have good opinions, that sort of thing. And I feel like with me, I can kind of avoid that because I've had conversations with some of these devs.
You already have inroads.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, and it's a fairly good argument. So, but given the fact that you have that and you seem pretty comfortable with it, and is this the first time you've ever ran for CSM?
Yes.
What made this the year?
So Merkelchen, Brisk, and Innominate are coming up on terms. Merkelchen and Innominate are already past their term limits. Brisk is going to be past his next year, and I'm kind of hoping to kind of slide into his slot. So if I can't get on this year, I'm hoping that I can get on next year with his spot.
The old angry mustache technique. No.
No.
I'm kidding.
Mustache.
No, it was somebody. It wasn't him. It was somebody else said that last year, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Angry Mustache is. I'm excited to see him. Okay, he's going to be on the CSM because he's one of the top 2 Goonswarm candidates, right? I'm excited for that.
He's a super smart dude.
Yeah, and he's an amazing guy. Knows his stuff. Like, yeah.
But we're here for you.
Right.
So
I'm also pretty good.
Was there something that like catalyzed you to feel like you needed to run?
So CCP has missed a lot of communication targets lately. They have miscommunicated a few things in seemingly innocuous ways that have spiraled and been really bad for them. So the Stain Stargate event, the communications around that kind of made that seem like it could fail, right? And people wanted it to fail because people in EVE want to see things go wrong, and I want to see things in EVE go wrong because that's a better story than dev launches expansion, it works fine.
Right.
But that, like, these Stain Stargates never had a chance to fail. And so, like, the communication on that was kind of bad.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that I want to step in front of as a CSM and say, look, this is what players are going to read from this. Is this what you mean?
Right. So, first of all, there's one Stargate that went to Stain that was made. The 4 Stargates were in 4 different locations.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah,
but
the Stain one is the most eye-catching one, right? Because it's the meme forever. That's
sure.
Why I said
yeah, totally. I feel personally bad about this because I was one of the people. I was probably one of the main people that was out there saying, like, I see this on HoboLeaks. This must be what this means. And people believed me. And I sometimes wonder whether or not they conflated me saying it to CCP saying it. And like, as it went through the echoes, as it echoed through telephone land, it became CCP said it. That said, do you think that it would be CCP's duty to step in and correct me?
Yes. In that case, yes, they should have. Absolutely. They should have made it now, not directly, right? In the blog post that came out describing the event, it should have said, it should have made it seem like this is a permanent thing that is going to happen and players can help it. So, what if players could have helped it speed up or slow it down,
Right. No, yeah, I understand.
right?
And to their credit, though, CCP Fozzie did directly talk to me about it and
Yes.
correct me. And I think that there was something in the dev blog that led me to even ask that question. But you're right. I mean, like even without any of that, the very pretense of the Stargate event implies the ability to disrupt it.
Yes. Right. Like there's this well, and that's everything with Eve, right? I mean, you know, you guys snapped me Arja, or not you guys, but
Oh,
the player base.
I'll
I
take
mean,
it.
I don't remember which side you were on.
Oh, I was the CEO for Cybernauts.
Well, there you go. You guys snapped the Arja in half, right? That is one of the coolest things that's happened to Eve in a long time, because because of everything that happened to it, right? Like you guys had your war thing going on, right? And the RPers were fighting, and then the null blocks got alerted that this was happening, and the null blocks got involved in that one specific part, right?
Right.
Because one side wanted it to stay, the other side wanted it. Well, the other side wanted that side not to get what they wanted, and so like the null blocks get involved.
That is a very diplomatic way of explaining that situation. Let me tell you.
Well, I mean, and the irony there is like we were both on the side of it that was getting cut off from Jita, right? Like it was like, all right, well, this might be bad for us, but they want it, so fuck them.
I love it.
Yeah, no, that was super fun. So anyway, with that, and I think sorry, we're off track on the question a bit.
We're talking about
Yeah,
well,
communication from TCP.
Yeah. How they should,
Um,
what they should and shouldn't communicate, and where
yeah,
they failed to communicate.
and I think FanFest was another one of those communication missteps.
Yes.
And I think there's stuff they could have said on day one of FanFest that would have made people a lot happier going into day two if they had just come out and said it in the first in the first day.
Or even within the first hour of the keynote, because there was some good stuff that was buried at the very end of the keynote.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I fully agree with that. But at the same time, what was said at the keynote and the Living Universe really sounds like CCP is saying the same thing you are. So are you encouraged? Do you feel like what they talked about is the solution that you're talking about?
I really am looking forward to seeing what they do with the stuff they announced at FanFest. The Living Universe and the way they kind of want to release stuff into the game via the storyline and let players kind of interact with how that stuff gets released in the game. We saw it a little with the what was it, the compression books?
Yep.
How they kind of seeded them out in the events, let players find them and rescue them and all that.
Yeah, they gave that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
But also,
a lot.
Well, if I could jump on that real quick, during that same event, there were scientists, and they speculated about what if there was a thing where if you don't get the scientists in, it takes longer for them to finish the invention. And I think that was their way of kind of priming us for where we're going.
I would agree with that statement, and I think that's I think a lot of people heard something that made them think the sandbox was going away from FanFest, and I think the opposite is true. I think they're going to use this storyline to enhance the sandbox and make player decisions more impactful across the entire universe.
Excellent. I like you. All right. No. Do you believe that CCP can deliver on it?
I believe that they're gonna try.
Do you believe that they can? Can.
I think.
Not will, can.
Oh, can? Yes, I believe it's in their capability to do it. Everything from they want to, from everything I've talked to them, like they are very excited about this. Some of them are incredibly excited about this, and I think they can deliver.
Can you talk to the rest of the Imperium a little bit more? Because I need
Nope.
more people over there like you. Is this why you're not on the ballot? Is this why you're not the strategy?
No comment.
Fair enough.
mean, I love the group I fly with, but we're not all the same person, right?
Absolutely. And I think, I guess another way of putting it is, I think it's very noteworthy. We talk about, misconceptions and all that stuff, and I appreciate the fact that you are speaking against a lot of the misconceptions too. But there's misconceptions about the Imperium as well, right? Like the fact that you have these kinds of opinions and yet you're still Imperium, I think speaks not only positively of you, but is another way that you are uniquely interesting and capable as a CSM member, because you're not just another B. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, and I have
a lot of people try to convince me of that, but you have.
I have been in the Imperium since I think 30 days into my Eve career. There's 30 days of my Eve career where I was essentially a high sec in no group, right? But all kinds of people can succeed in the organization, right? It doesn't just produce drones.
So what is one thing, if CCP came to you and asked you, like, of the last 2 years, what is the thing that we need to right now go back and iterate over on? What would it be?
What would it be in the last 2 years?
Yeah, in the same way that they like revisited Surgical Strike, right? Like,
right, it would have been Surgical Strike. I mean, that's my honest answer.
too late, already done.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but like I had started talking to them a lot about it actually, because I think Surgical Strike took a lot of interesting play out of space. I would like to see. Yeah, what I want from Eve is interesting PVE.
Okay.
And I don't think Eve can. I don't think Eve can deliver interesting PVE right now, because I think all PVE in Eve is binary. You succeed or you fail, 100%. Right, and
Right.
I don't think that leaves good room for interesting gameplay. You either outgun and spend the thing you're going to do and you succeed, or you don't and you fail. And or
I would
you
even
you know
push. I would even go further than that, because it's not even that you fail. Like, you either
you lose
succeed,
everything.
die, or quit. Those are the
Yeah.
three ends. There's no
Right.
I tried and the guy got away, or I didn't hack it in time. There's very few situations where you can you can fail without it being that you died or had to leave.
Cataclysmic. Right.
Right.
I mean, and if you can leave, great. Usually you can't.
Like, oh,
Right?
they killed the damsel. You get to go back and say that you failed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Here's your corpse.
So that's not a specific thing they could go back and iterate on, other than just saying their PVE is bad and they should fix it.
Right, but I do love the idea that you're coming up with a different reason. Like, so often people say, "Oh, Eve PVE and Eve can't be good," and a lot of the times we focus on whether or not the rats are as smart as players, which legitimately isn't actually necessary for the purposes of what PVE is designed to do. But this idea that the actual tasks themselves are interesting enough to fail or to dovetail
Right.
out, or
Like,
to have, it's not just warp to the place, shoot the things until there's no more things, go home.
Yeah, like you warp in, you shoot everything until you're dead or they're dead, or you go into an abyssal site and you either like lose your giant shiny spaceship or you win, and there's no in between. Like, so the only I
Well,
said it in the post. I'll go ahead and say it here. The other game I play is World of Warcraft. Right? There are levels of success and failure in World of Warcraft.
explain.
You can go in and spend 3 hours trying to clear a raid, get halfway through it.
Ah,
You didn't all out win, but you did kill half the stuff in there. You got rewards for it. You lost time. You lost resources doing it. So you've got a balance there, right?
right. It's
You
still a
didn't
series of binary states, win lose,
right
but it's a sequence that you must get through.
right.
Yeah.
Now that's not. I'm not saying Eve needs WoW raids,
No, but
right?
like
I'm just
escalations would be a good
yeah.
example of where that would
Escalation is a
be.
good example. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Or yeah, there needs to be a way for non ultra binary like outcomes of Eve PvE.
You know,
Because the reason I say that is because it all goes down to players need to be in space. Players need to have a reason to be in space rather than
right.
sitting in station or not logging in.
Man, you've got me thinking. So now I'm thinking about like No Man's Sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you go to the place, there's a thing there, you look at it and it asks you a question. It's like a sequence of numbers or like a weird random question you may or may not even be able to understand if you know the language or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have to pick one of several options. And if you pick correctly, then you get the thing. And if you don't, then you don't. And I don't know about, I mean, you can save scum it, but I think a lot of people just make the best guess that they can and accept it if they lose. And you know, it's like, oh, well, you know, whatever. So then any given, yeah, I completed the factory, but I didn't get the prize. In Eve, that's always I believe almost always a random chance, right? That like you finish the site and boop, proc, it's an escalation. What if there was a task, a question, a thing that you had to do, even if it's like just a shell game, right? Pick which one of these.
Kill the right ship.
Right.
Kill
the right ship. Yeah. Open the right node. You know, you get one chance. You get to open a node and then the other two explode. You know, whatever. Something like that where you feel like you've made a choice in the matter. I think that actually is an incredibly interesting way to add at least a sense of depth without actually having to build too much new. That's a very, and it's in a weird way, it's a new mechanic for Eve. But yeah, again, I like the fact that, you know, the conventional wisdom, a lot of people like to say that there's no good thing of PvE, and we're always caught in the whole idea of like making it fun to fight the rats or whatever. But
yeah, and that's Eve's gameplay. It's not fighting the rats is not going to be fun. I mean, because you're either more powerful than them or you're not, right?
Right.
There's got to be
I mean, you can make it more fun, right? You know, the more you can add, but like it's never going to be another player, and you're not trying to make it that way.
Abyssals are way more fun than like, you know, anomaly rats, and like the AI is getting better. It is getting smarter. It does neat things, but even like the diamond AI, it's not that much smarter. It's just way stronger.
Right, and I think that the problem is that like for the entire time I've been playing this game, we've tried to fix it by making things stronger, right? Like the escalation of just normal rats to sleeper rats to Sancha rats, you know? Like it wasn't until Invasions that we started thinking about things in the terms of like, well, how do we make more dangerous situations because the rats are more realistic, not because
making
they
better
are
choices.
Yeah. Not like if you run an event site, most of the time the rats are basically what they're flying. They're not overly buffed or anything like that. But they also are able to use new tactics and, you know, do stuff together in a way that they weren't able to before, which is more interesting. But at the same time, you're right. Ultimately, to the player base, I see, oh, these are just cookie cutter sites, you know, whatever. The fact that CCP like hand makes every single, event to have rats that are thematically interesting and like tie into it and have different challenges. On a big level, that doesn't matter. But things like Liberation Day, things like even the smuggler thing to a lesser extent, the choices that people get to make.
Those choices make for an interesting event. And I talked to CGB Fozzie quite a bit about this at FanFest, like about the live events, because I think they're pretty cool, and I think they're getting better constantly. And it goes back to, so the first bold statement there in my CSM post is more players in space. And anything that is a net gain to the amount of spaceships that are in the universe, to me, is a good change. And anything that incentivizes you not doing that, bad thing.
So we've accepted the fact that CCP bungled the delivery of the FanFest presentations. But one of the things that was brought to my attention, and like I find it shocking that this wasn't pointed out, is that the $20 thing. Everybody's focused on the $20 thing. But then I look over at the heraldry system and the interbus points, and they explicitly aren't selling those. Those are things that they could sell. They're not.
Yes.
And so I see this as them doubling down on subscriptions and using something that could be sold for money exclusively to reward people to be out in space and doing things, because they understand that that's the most important piece.
So I completely agree with that. Heraldry is one of the things I'm more excited about out of FanFest than most things. It is definitely their way of giving back of giving value to that $5 increase. They're effectively achievement points for going around and doing stuff, except you get to cash them in to make your ships look cooler. And then they also feed up to your alliance and your corporation and your alliance to make your stations look cooler. Imagine if you will a world where you could decorate the gates in your SOV systems.
Right.
You could make it look like you could see, and I'm going to use my capital as you could tell you're at the gates of 1DQ1 because like the Matani is there in statue form on the gate looking at you when you're about to cross into 1DQ1, right?
There's no sign that says "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here."
I mean, yeah, maybe
that's on the other side,
right? Yeah, that's on the other side. Yeah, but no, like I think heraldry could be super cool.
Right.
Like I love the modification to the ship, and all of that could easily be sold. The ship modifications, the skins that come along with it, the structure skins. The Merkelchen and Brisk and Anominate have been begging them to sell us structure skins because so much money could be made from that, and they're choosing to put it behind this this $5 increase to the Omega sub, right? Which I think is them putting their money where their mouth is on that.
Yeah, like the more free to play the game is, the more they're incentivized to try to monetize inconvenience or all that kind of stuff. By doubling down on the subscription, that hopefully would encourage them to make it worth subscribing.
Get more players to subscribe.
Right. But at the same time, I feel like, we talk about the declining numbers, but it seems like there's a lot more people unsubbing alts than outright quitting. Do you agree that that's true? And do you think that large scale alts is a problem or not?
So
because we're talking about new players, right? You just said bring in more players. Do we want more players, or do we want more alts?
I want more people in space.
Right.
I don't necessarily distinguish. Like I'm fine with it's 5 more guys or the same guy and 5 more Ishtars. Like I just want more spaceships in space. Now I do want new players. Don't get me wrong, but the more spaceships that are in space, that means the more stuff there is to do. The more there is to do, the more likely you're going to be able to convince someone new to the game that the game's worth playing. Like I used to have 13 accounts at something like that active, mining and doing all the the ridiculousness that was, right? I'm down to like 3 now, but so it may be that alts are unsubbing.
But do you
But it's
consider that a
hard to
good sign
tell.
or a bad sign that you unsubbed from 14 to 3?
I mean, it's good for me. Mining with 13 bar just was terrible. But no, I mean, it's probably not good that people are subbing less alts, because alts have always been a core of how Eve is run. What's the average number they set at FanFest? Like 3.5, 2.5?
Well, it was 2.5, or it was 1.5. I think it was like years ago with Quant.
Mm-hmm.
But then here's the problem with the numbers that they gave at FanFest was that it was like based on just the audience, but it was ridiculous. It was like 9 or 10. So I imagine it's somewhere around 4 or 5 at this point for like the main population.
But I mean, Eve is a hard game to get people to play. I've tried to get all of my friends to play Eve that don't, and I have not succeeded once. They'll come, they'll play for a bit, and they'll enjoy the first few days, and then it's like, all right, we're gonna try to PvE, and I'm terrible at finding content, and it just doesn't work.
Well, what's going wrong then? Why can't we keep these people? What can CCP do to keep these people?
Do you want the reasonable answer or the radical answer?
Oof. Let's start with the reasonable and work our way towards radical.
So the reasonable answer is actually Frontlines. I think Frontlines is going to help a lot. Frontlines combined with
Allegiance.
Yes. I can't do faction warfare. It's impossible.
Right.
It's just flat out impossible. My characters have roles in a corporation that I'm not going to abandon, so I can't do it.
You could make an alt.
Allegiance. I could make an alt, but I'm not going to do that either. That's fair. But like with Frontlines, I can deploy Karma Fleet to faction warfare.
Are you at all concerned about Allegiance tearing apart groups as brother turns against brother? One person goes Caldari, the other goes Galente. Now they're mad at each other. Everybody shows their true colors.
I'm not concerned about it within my my group. It may be a problem for other groups, but I think overall it'll be fine. I'm looking forward to it because, like I said, if once this comes to play, I can deploy Karma Fleet to faction warfare if there's nothing else going on that we want to do, right?
Right. Or there might be something else going on based on the Allegiance system. Who knows what they're up to?
Yeah, there's a ton of options that it opens up. Right. And I think it's a really good change. And I think that if the frontline system that they're implementing for faction warfare works, they've even said maybe that turns into SOV. Maybe that turns into, whole new systems in other parts of the game. Right? They're using the revamp of faction warfare as an experiment to move on to other things.
Right. So, the ARC system. On the one hand, things coming into the universe diegetically through, the actions of the empires or, whatever, is kind of cool and immersive. On the other hand, it lends us to not really know what's going on very much, which makes people upset. It feels scripted potentially if they're just using it to introduce a new thing. And there's a lot of people that would rather not have to engage with the lore in order to do stuff. How do you feel overall about the ARC system, and how can we make that successful?
It's difficult for me to answer this question because I know because I do have some privileged information, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Already sounding like a CSM member.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. You've got the part down, at least.
So, like, the key thing here is players are going to be able to change the outcome of some of this. But say a new line of whatever. Say a new thing is introduced, right? Ships, structure, whatever. if the players may not be able to stop it from happening, they may just be able to choose the order in which it happens. You remember when T3 destroyers?
Yep, that's the one I go to. Yep.
Players may just be able to choose how that technology comes into the game, and CCP is not going to tell us ahead of time for stuff like that.
Is that better?
It could be fun. We'll find out. Now, system changes, massive system changes, they're going to tell us about. They're going to, like, give us the notes on what the new system is going to work like. But they don't want to spoil the surprises with the fun, softer changes. The ships, the structures, the modules, whatever it might be. They don't want to spoil the ending of the book. They want us to discover it and find it out. And it's all going to get into the game eventually, because they're not going to have they're not going to spend dev time on and art time on stuff that never gets put in.
Right. Ironically enough, once it's done, it almost doesn't matter if it takes a month to implement. Yeah, a month to release it, or 3 months to release it, or whatever. Whenever they just like the ore thing, right? If we had just refused to give any scientists, CCP would have been like, you know what? You can wait another month for the compression to happen. They don't have their scientists. They don't get it. They can't invent it, Or maybe since the other side, the Guristas, were doing something with it, or no, that was Angels, whatever. Maybe if we had turned over all the scientists to the Angels, they would have released the heraldry system or something. You get what I'm saying? You can
there's ways they could have done that, right?
By delaying one, you can bring the other to pass.
Yep. Speaking of Angels and bad CCP communication, the worst CCP communication ever was showing those Angel capitals.
Oh God, that is not even where I thought you were going. But yeah,
oh no, I just stuff like that is stuff that as a CSM I would say, don't do that until you know that's going to happen, because you'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah,
because
we haven't heard the end of it.
Well, yeah, and those Angel caps are not happening. I mean, I don't know that, but I know that.
I've told people that there is no surer sign that the Eve is dead or dying, like in its last throes, than Angel Titans being announced. That is
that's fair.
That is the break. Yeah. That is the dance studio for EVE Online. Sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It not being released is a good sign, in my opinion. Speak to the people that are uninterested in the ARC system. Why should they be excited about this? Why should they assuming that they don't not whether or not they'll like it in the end, but they're just anxious right now about what it represents. Can you speak to those people to help them understand or feel more positive about it?
Honestly, probably not. If they don't trust the ARC system, they probably have a good reason not to. There's been failed promises in the past, right? Mm-hmm. The longer you've played this game, the more reason you have to question what you hear.
Absolutely.
And I think that's fair. And I think the only thing they can really do is wait and see if it happens. And I've said I'm comfortable saying this because I said the same thing to CCP Burger, in person when he asked me what I thought of the keynote. I was like, yeah, man, that'll be great. If it comes to be, that'll be awesome.
That is literally the way my final thoughts on the keynote, which was if you don't believe them, if you're still anxious about this, if this wasn't enough, that's fine. If you want to, if it isn't enough for you right now and you want to unsub, then you should unsub, right? Don't support it if you don't believe in it. But the good news is that, if they deliver something good or they deliver something bad, that's what's ultimately going to matter, right? Mm-hmm. We're living in the between time right now.
Right. We'll know in a few months if they get it right.
Right. I still feel like CCP should have captured our imagination, with when it came to the ARC system, having something happen beyond just the release of the second phase of the event. But I actually wanted it to climax with have the ARC end at FanFest And that way they could go back and be like, here were all of the points that you guys that were there that you missed, that were there all along.
And they did too. The timing wasn't there.
I had a feeling like, especially based on what they said was going to be announced versus what was announced, that they had an expectation of being able to say a lot of things, but then when this decision of the arcs came down, it was like, well, shit, now we can't talk about any of the things that we were going to talk about. We can't talk about the new sites.
There were a couple things that got pulled out of FanFest and put off for announcing until it gets put in the game. And, that could be like the end of the year.
I still think that it's absolutely, like, they should have thrown some meat to Nullsec in particular. Like, they went unaddressed by and large.
Just give us a new ship, man. That's like, give EVE players a new ship and everyone will be happy for 6 months while we figure it out. Right?
How do you feel about dynamic bounty system?
I think it is largely a failed system. I don't think it addresses the goals it wanted to address.
What's wrong with it?
It disincentivizes you from being in space, which is like antithesis to my whole platform. So like, you own space. You fought Goon's own space. We fought a giant war over this space. We want this space. We fought multiple wars over the current space. And now we have it back, and some of it's like, that whole area over there, that's ruined. We can't use it for 6 weeks. No one's going to come in there and fight us because it's not anywhere near the front lines. There's no reason for anyone to be there. It's just going to have shitty modifiers for a long time.
I've always thought that, like, that's the time to host a tournament, right? Like, have a grand brawl.
Yeah, but I don't know if you know a lot about Goons. We don't really invite other people to come play with our toys.
That's fair. Internal, then.
But yeah, I mean, and then the man. Here's another communication note for you. They were changing the bank. The reserve banks, and they were making a change to like the minimum number or something, and I thought it was an amazing change because I thought they were talking about the bank that pays out regularly and not the one that sits and no one ever interacts with.
I remember that. Yeah, there was something about that, and like everybody was like, "Oh yeah, great! There's going to be just twice as much there."
Yeah, everyone was like, "Man, this is the most amazing change ever!" And then they're like, "Oh no, we meant the other one." And everyone was instantly saying, "Oh, well, okay. This is obviously garbage and no one's ever going to interact with this change. Cool, thanks." Moving on with our lives.
Yeah, right? I think that the reserve bank key has failed pretty spectacular for various reasons.
I mean, there's trillions of ISK sitting out there and no one is stealing it. That is pretty damning.
Is it stealing?
Well, no one is recovering their own.
Nobody's going after it. Yeah.
I guess Frat is starting to. I think, but like they get. I think on the economic report, I think Frat got a bunch of it out. But anyway, I digress. Like, there's trillions of it sitting there, and no one wants it because the system is too hard to interact with.
Right.
That's a bad system.
The keys are a bottleneck. Announcing it to the whole region causes people to not even bother unless you own the space, which makes it no longer raiding. It's now
It's now just
looting a
crack
purse.
And open your own piggy bank. Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah, I agree.
Now, stealing from the other half of the bank, that's fun. That's cool.
Right.
I enjoy that. I think that's good gameplay, and I think it goes to one of the points I brought up in my post. Eve needs short session gameplay. Desperately.
Yes.
You need to be able to log into Eve and do something significant and log out in 30 to 45 minutes. And I think looting those banks is is a good way you can do that.
I agree. I think that there's a lot of people, like, I hear a lot of complaints. I don't know how often the negative result happens to the positive result. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of ways that it goes wrong. You know, the people run away. Everybody just shows up marauders. You know, there are definitely things that improve it. But, like, I wonder how the reality matches to the report. It'd be interesting to see those numbers, like how many successful raids there are versus unsuccessful versus
failed.
kills.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good example of something that can, technically have different kinds of success, as it were, because there's multiple stages of that. You could start the hack, you can succeed in the hack, you can get a good fight, you can run away, you can get the stuff and then get blown up. You can.
I think that part of the whole DBS ESS system is the good part.
Right.
Like, I think that's the good part of the system, and I think the rest of it is not great.
Is scarcity over?
I mean, yeah. Is it over the way that we wanted it to be? No, but it's probably as over as it's gonna be. They're gonna keep tweaking some things, likely. They just now made caps probably producible again, which is nice, right? You can make a dreadnought now.
Yep.
In theory.
Maybe it's going to take a little bit.
Sell that dreadnought.
Maybe. Well, let's not get too fancy.
Right. But so that's neat. But scarcity is as over as it's going to be. Rorquals were a terrible mistake. They were told it was going to be a mistake. They let them happen. They let them go too long. They let us sit on them and mine 25% of the resources that were mined in Eve.
More importantly, they let it go on long enough that people felt that they were entitled to them.
Right, and it became the norm.
Right,
like it became the way the game worked. And I mean, groups started adjusting around that. Right, like dreads and carriers became battleships.
Yep.
I hear people started liking that.
People keep saying like, bring back boson ratting, and it just breaks my heart. Like it's like, I feel like we've lost something.
Yeah. When I started Eve, I remember seeing my first Titan, right? And it was such a cool experience because like they were these mythical things. And now there's one sitting in my hangar that, it's cool, whatever. It's the second one. The first one was blown up, and because of all this craziness of Rorqual ratting, or not Rorqual mining, I lost a Titan, and I had another one in a week later. It was replaced.
So, I have often said one of my most flagrant opinions that gets argued about, or like shot down by people the most aggressively, would be I feel that asset safety needs to be removed from supers and titans. That the idea, you come from that before time, like, don't you feel that the concept of Titan caches, the fact that you can have spare Titans in reserve and have that be perfectly safe, do you see that as being a problem or impactful, or do you think I'm wrong?
Both. I think you're wrong. I think asset safety should not be removed from those items, but it should have never been put on them.
I can agree with that. So you're saying that like the Pandora's box is open?
Damage is done.
Well, what do we do about it then?
You accept it. You move on. You probably make a super Titan don't let asset safety work on that.
Fair enough.
Right, because
I hate that
removing. Sorry.
I know. Yeah. No, I hate it because it's the first argument for Super Titans that I've heard that like I can go, oh shit, that's a reasonable. God damn it, no, I hate this idea.
Removing asset safety from low power structures was probably a really bad move overall for the health of the game. Yeah, think about how many people will never come back to Eve because of that. They were told their assets were safe, right? And then they were told they were safe and they would be safe forever. And yes, they tried to say, oh, we communicated with those people. Yeah, but only because the community said, hey, you should probably tell people.
Yeah, I never interpreted it as them being safe forever, but I know a lot of people were.
Right. I mean, but that's how Eve's always worked, right? You put your assets in a station they'll be in that station whether or not you can access them. Maybe, you know, but like,
and this goes back to Rorquals and Titans, right? Like if you let something go on for 2 years, it's now the normal, right? Like
right.
it doesn't matter what you said it was going to be originally. This is now the way things are.
And it's just hard to roll that back. It's hard to, like, that broke trust for a lot of people. And a lot of people will never trust the company again, and will never come back to Eve over that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, I understand how that can have that effect. Although I would say that, like, it's a wake up call, truly. But in my opinion, it's more of like you just suddenly realized what this game really was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I can understand as a communication issue, they allowed it to come across as a betrayal. This is actually a really good example of why it might have been worth the effort to make it so that anybody who hasn't logged in for, you know, so many months before the post that they made has their stuff locked in and safe. So that way, if somebody truly was AFK, then they don't lose their stuff.
I think that would have been probably the way to go with it. But I don't think they had enough development time set aside for it to make that happen.
Yes, that felt like it was coming in that time where, like, in 2019, they really figured out how different the path that they were going on was from the path that they wanted to go on. You know, we start to see a lot of really, really fast changes. The war deck changes at the end of 2019 was kind of the beginning of it. And then we see this kind of cascade. And so, especially at the beginning, it was like, what can we get done to get these things fixed now?
Right. Let's do something quick.
Yep.
Like, and yeah, that's it. It's one of the few mistakes that I've experienced in the game while I've been playing that I think is close to unforgivable, honestly. Like, I can get behind a lot of the others. Like, okay, so I didn't like Blackout. I thought it was dumb. But I understand why they did it. And I understand why they let it go on as long as they did. But, like, so to me, Blackout was a mistake, but a forgivable one, is what I'm trying to say. And the asset safety changes don't fall under that same category to me.
I don't know if I agree that Blackout was a mistake, because they learned a lot from it, right? So, like, it was a bad thing.
The mistake was letting it go on too long.
That's interesting that you say that, because I know a lot of people that say that it didn't, like, it was cut short.
Yeah, it was cut short, but
still too long.
They had all the evidence they needed to cut it short.
That's fair. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think that we actually get forward without Blackout having happened.
No, like I said, it in and of itself was not the mistake. The mistake was it went on too long.
Right.
And because, like, I don't know, everyone's seen the graph of what happened to players in space. What happened to players in space when Blackout was happening, right? They dumped. They went in the dump.
I also think that there was, like, the conflation of, because when we talk about Blackout, especially to people that weren't necessarily there, right? Because now that's a thing that happened in the, long ago, right? A lot of people don't even realize that, like, the drifter attacks were part of that too, right? We think of it as only local, but also everyone's being attacked by drifters. Like, there is, so you're talking about the good data or whatever, but really, there was several things all going on right then that were causing a lot of problems.
I'm going to turn this around on you. What's your opinion on the drifter attacks?
Ooh. That really depends. If it is what I thought it was, which was like an experiment of their AI, testing it against defenses and how people would deal with these kinds of things, then great. If it was, in fact, hey, we have all these drifter AIs, let's just see what happens, then I feel like it was incredibly ham-fisted. Like, it had too many bugs and other issues to it to not have been done for good purpose. So, but I also don't know if it was done with good purpose. You know what I'm saying? I know that the drifter AI has, like, when the drifters attack in that sense in the past, it has been to test the AI, right? Like CCP will make changes to the drifter AI, and then they'll attack, Arataka Research Consortium and force them to fight them, and then they'll see how they fought them, and then maybe make adjustments to see how to make it fix. And that's how CCP learned how to teach their AI how to work. So if that was a necessary experiment for the living universe, awesome. If it was just something because they were bored or throwing something at the wall, be a little bit more careful next time.
And I tend to think it was that second one. And from the Imperium perspective, the drifter attacks were awful.
Right.
They stopped us from prosecuting a war. We had to abandon a campaign and use everyone in the organization we had any amount of trust to man citadels and shoot at drifters.
You know what I didn't like about the drifter attack? I didn't like the fact that drifters are super freaking alien to us, right?
Right.
They use different propulsion systems. They use different locking systems. They have different capabilities than us. And the problem is that they were so unusual in how they behaved, and it was obvious that at least some of the things that were happening were bugs, that it was counter-informative. We didn't learn. Yeah, we didn't learn anything about the drifters because we just assumed that all of these, maybe they can lock out to 200 kilometers. Maybe they are supposed to be undetectable from D-scan. But who the fuck knows? Because everything else that was happening.
Is it real or is it just poorly coded
right now? Is this evidence of their superior technology, or is this bad game?
It would have also been an amazing time to start the process of getting us drifter tech, right? Because
I know that CCP is very anti that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but if they're going to make us kill hundreds of these things across the entire universe, like, give us something for it.
I think that the theme between these two is that what we could have used is a much more effective and sooner post-mortem, right? Yeah. We should have received a dev blog after the drifter attacks.
A dev blog about the drifter attack would have been great.
Yep. We absolutely should have gotten that. Again, because I think that the drifter attacks have now just been lost to history almost, or it's been assumed by the blackout and chaos.
They're just a footnote now.
Yeah. And I think that's unfortunate because raw. All right. Well, I've actually lost track of time completely.
Yeah,
I don't remember when we
just started talking.
But do you have anything that you want to address before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I know I'm a goon, and I know that immediately makes people disregard anything I'm saying. But please, listen to what I say, read what I'm talking about. I want to tell stories about Eve because I love talking about Eve, and I love when people, comment on my posts on Kotaku, what is this? What even is this game? And it's that's exactly what I'm trying to find out and trying to share with everyone because, sometimes.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is something that this is another big thing for me. Okay, one of the real problems is the perception of EVE Online in the public, right? So how often when you post articles is the majority of the posts oh, spreadsheet simulator, a wonderful game, but I don't have enough time to play it. Just, don't even, not worth it.
50%.
Blah, 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 blah.
50%.
A, how do you deal with that? And B, have you noticed it change over time? Or is it getting better, worse, different? Because I seriously think that rebranding or not rebranding, but resuscitating the brand in some way is going to ultimately be the path forward.
You know what didn't help that? The Microsoft Excel connection directly to Eve did not help that at all.
Well, depends on which things you're trying to reinforce. I meant more the psychopath be the villain. It's terrible. Everybody's just going to screw you over. That's why you don't want to take part in it.
Well, and that's why I try to tell. That's why I try to tell the good stories too. Right.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, people associate Eve with psychopaths blowing up ships that are worth thousands of dollars. That's the main association. The secondary association is spreadsheets in space. I think a lot of people have played Eve and think, okay, well, I've tried this game. It's not for me. But they tried it 15 years ago, and it's not the same game.
Right. And I
So,
think,
yeah, there is some rehabilitation that could be done. And I think that's what the other properties are for. That's what Dust was for. That's what the new unannounced FPS is for. Right?
right.
Like,
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. But I guess that's the reason why I brought that up, though, because I remember like when Valkyrie came out, I went to Yogscast, did a playthrough of it, obviously sponsored, but they they dug it. They seemed to have fun. Like they had a positive review, I would say. But if you went into the comments, it was people like waving people away from it because it's associated with Eve. Like it's a
right.
radioactive brand in a lot of ways.
We are a toxic community.
But
we are.
That's fair.
Look at the subreddit. Right? Like what's the first thing you do when you start a new hobby? For me,
that's what I was saying earlier.
Like for me, I go to Reddit and see if my new hobby has a subreddit. And if I did that with Eve, I'd have probably ran away screaming.
Absolutely. But I think that also, to the point that you were making just a few minutes ago, the people that come in and find those big explosions or whatever, that's fine. They stay. The people that find the spreadsheet stuff and find that interesting, those people stay. But the people that show up that just want to like fly around in space and do cool things, the people that want to engage with a thing that's in front of them and be given goals and work through them and all that sort of stuff, who may not necessarily be comfortable yet with joining a player group, they find nothing. And so we end up with Eve and the Eve player base seeming to be very skewed in one direction because people that come in for the other direction just leave before they get to anything. And so I think that one of the best ways to rehabilitate it is, as you said, build up a good PvE. Give those people, answer that question of what's next.
What do I do? Like, what can I log in and do? Good PvE, short session gameplay goes a long way to help this game continue.
Yep.
Right?
It goes a long way. Agree.
Because right now, CCP has put so much work into the NPE, and the NPE is really cool, and it's going to keep getting better. But the NPE is not the game that you're going to play.
Right. I like to say that
it's an entirely different game.
The content for experienced players and PvPers are players. The way you get players is through PvE.
Yep.
Right? Like new players becoming experienced players is your content. And like when CCP, when they say CCP needs to bring us content, we need more people. Well,
CCP
paradoxically,
needs to provide content to those new people.
Exactly. Paradoxically, we need an MPE if you want to have those people. And it's not enough to 100%. Just simply say that Eve can't be taught or that CCP just keeps redoing the PvE or the MPE. There's a reason why, because that's the X factor. You figure it out and we can grow and, build up a player base. You don't figure it out, we continue to strangle each other as people become increasingly older into the game, more powerful, more experienced. This game was never designed for 20-year-old players. And yet we're going to see more and more of those. Wow, dude. All right. Well, all I'm going to say, I usually like to talk about why somebody would be a good candidate, but I'm just going to say that in my opinion, you get it. You get the problems, you get what's going on, you get what makes Eve good, you understand what is holding Eve back. And that's the big one, right? I feel like as Fonsui likes to say, CCP learns all the wrong lessons. And I think that part of the reason why is because we often communicate the wrong things. We're obsessed with the wrong things, and then they believe us because forest for trees and all that stuff. Yet you really do seem to have understand what, like I said, just what makes Eve good and what holds it back. And to that end, again, as I've said with a few other candidates, with this year in particular, with CCP finally saying, okay, we're going to do it now. Yeah, we need every one of as many of the CSM people as possible. It really needs to not be a matter of like 8 standard block, people toting the line and then 2 wildcard candidates. We need as many of those other voices at the table as possible.
We need the CSM to be people that like Eve and
right.
want Eve to work.
And
they don't. A lot of CSM want their small part of Eve to work, and that's not me. Like, I want Eve to continue to exist, and I understand that. If Goon Swarm, if the Imperium is the apex predator, and maybe we are, maybe we're not. If we are, we need everything else in the ecosystem to exist and thrive so that we don't starve.
Right.
And that's what, and that goes for every group, right?
It's perfectly fine for there to be a biggest group. It's just, how much does that impact the rest of the universe? How much space is there for everybody else? That's always been the question, right? You're not going to prevent somebody from being the winner in a competitive game that doesn't end, right? Like, the accumulation of power is always going to happen. This is not a Eve phenomena.
Yeah, the Imperium is inevitable.
Right.
It's not, if it's a different group of people with a different name, someone holds that position. Someone holds that position from the first day the game started. They just may not have the reach yet.
Yep.
There's always a most powerful group.
So it's more about making sure that they have their territory and they can feel good about it, but at the same time,
everything else can continue to exist.
Right. It's not worth it to control the whole universe. It's worth it to control their space. And I think that CCP's actually done a pretty good job of drilling in on that. DBS is kind of a weird trip.
DBS is anti that, yeah, but general, yes.
I think that for non-Imperium candidates, or for non-Imperium people, for people that ask the question of like, why should I vote for a goon? I think that, and I hope you understand that this comes with all of the friendship that I have for you, but like, if you're gonna hold your nose and vote for an Imperium candidate, this is the one to do it for, because he has the against the Imperium line kind of concept in that sense. Like, he's for us, the non-Imperium people, yet is on the ballot low, which means we could actually make the difference. That's a big one.
Yes.
That's a big one. Suetonia got in because he was at the end of the Imperium ballot, and he had enough other people to get him there. So you actually have potential.
Yeah, logistically, I need a lot of people to vote me early on for my position on the Goon ballot to matter at all.
Right. But if we do, then that actually I think, if you want to just talk strategy really quick, I think that is almost the best way that I've seen so far for us to get the 3 or 4 non-traditional block candidates, or CSM members, rather than 1 or 2, because in a weird way you'd be like a freebie because you are an Imperium person. You're not a not block candidate.
Yeah, you can
the Imperium gets to get their notch on their belt, but at the same time we get representatives that are good. Not saying that they're not good. Actually, a lot of the Imperium candidate or CSM members end up being really great, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
All right. Well, anything else that we want to cover?
No, I think I'm good. I think we've talked about everything I had to talk about.
Yeah, I have no idea how long we've went, but I think I can guarantee that we've gone at least an hour. So we're going to call that there. An hour. I've got one more question. Of course, it's the most important question. Cat ears, yes or no?
Absolutely.
I was
bring up every cosmetic.
I was super nervous that I was going to have to take back all the nice things I just said. So I really appreciate you getting the right answer on that one.
No, and this is this is a 100% serious answer. They cannot make enough cosmetics.
That's a good way of putting it.
I mean, we are crazy space demons at this point, like in game, right? We are immortal, insane psychopaths. Yeah, give us whatever we want to paint on our ship, or to or to wear, or whatever. Like that's. I don't think any of it breaks the motif of the world.
The immersion.
Yeah, the immersion, right? Like, I think anything you do cosmetically, it's great.
Yeah.
And it
People that
makes
feel
them
like that's not
money.
immersive, I think, just don't understand the Eve universe that well. It's got a lot
Yep,
of stuff
exactly.
in there. It's a big universe. It's got a lot of stuff.
It's a crazy universe,
Yeah.
right? It's
All right. Well, I personally believe that Eve has a good, strong universe or future ahead of it, especially with what they announced and whatnot. I'm glad to hear that you do too. I think that it is an incredibly good idea to have you on the CSM to help make that happen, because as we pointed out, like they could bungle it. It's a very that's a wide road.
yeah.
And narrow is the path to success, but it is there. And the only way we get there is by A, having faith that it's possible, and B, being there alongside CCP, trying to help accomplish those goals rather than pushing our own agendas or trying to make Eve into what we want it to be, as it were. And I think that, like, to that end, I hope that you get on the CSM. I guess I'm just going to put it that way. So,
I appreciate it.
With all that said, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. It was very nice to chat with you. And thank you all for coming and checking this out. If you're on the YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe before you go. You can ask any questions to Sarin in the comments or on his forum post that is linked in the doobly-doo down below. If this is the playlist, you can hang out and wait to be sent to the next one. But otherwise, either way, thank you for checking this out and becoming informed, because an informed electorate makes an effective CSM, and that is what we need. CSM is a tool for us all, and it's only as good as we make it. So thank you very much, Sarin, for being willing to run for the CSM, and the best of luck to you.
Thank you for having me. Had a lot of fun.
And on behalf of Sarin and myself, Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, thank you all for watching, and until next time, we'll see you in space.